In a quaint little town nestled between rolling hills and shimmering lakes, there lived a man named Thomas Oakes. Thomas was known far and wide for his unwavering honesty, a trait that had earned him both admiration and, at times, a bit of trouble. Thomas was a humble man, living in a modest cottage at the edge of town. Every morning, he would wake with the sun, his heart filled with a simple joy that came from living a life of truth. One day, as he was walking to the market, he found a small purse lying on the ground. Without a second thought, Thomas picked it up and immediately set out to find its owner. As he wandered through the town, asking people if they had lost anything, he encountered an old woman who looked distressed. Her hands were trembling as she explained that she had lost her life savings in a small purse. Thomas smiled warmly and handed her the purse. The woman's eyes filled with tears of gratitude as she opened it and saw that every coin was still there. The old woman thanked Thomas profusely, but he simply tipped his hat and continued on his way, content with having done the right thing. He did not expect anything in return, as honesty was its own reward for him. However, word of Thomas's good deed quickly spread throughout the town. People began to stop him in the streets, praising him for his honesty, and even the mayor invited him to a banquet in his honor. Thomas felt a bit uncomfortable with all the attention, but he graciously accepted the mayor's invitation. At the banquet, Thomas was seated next to some of the town's most influential figures. As they dined, one of the guests, a wealthy merchant, began to boast about his recent business dealings. Thomas listened politely, but when the merchant asked for his opinion, Thomas couldn't help but speak the truth. "I'm sorry, but it seems to me that your profits have come at the expense of others," Thomas said, his voice calm but firm. The room fell silent as everyone turned to look at the merchant. The merchant's face turned red with anger, but he knew better than to challenge Thomas's honesty. Instead, he laughed awkwardly and changed the subject, but the tension in the room remained. After the banquet, some people admired Thomas even more, while others thought he was too blunt for his own good. Thomas, however, remained unfazed by their opinions. A few weeks later, Thomas was walking through the town square when he saw a young boy crying. The boy had accidentally broken a neighbor's window while playing with his friends. Without hesitation, Thomas knelt down beside the boy and said, "Don't worry, lad. We'll make it right." Together, they went to the neighbor's house, and Thomas explained what had happened. The neighbor, knowing Thomas's reputation, forgave the boy and even invited them in for tea. The boy's tears turned into a smile, and he looked up at Thomas with admiration. As they left the neighbor's house, the boy asked Thomas why he had told the truth, even though it could have gotten him in trouble. Thomas smiled and replied, "Because, my boy, the truth is always worth telling, no matter the cost." The boy nodded thoughtfully, and from that day on, he tried to follow Thomas's example. Thomas continued to live his life with honesty, helping others whenever he could. One day, a traveling circus came to town, bringing with it all manner of strange and wonderful attractions. The townsfolk were excited, and Thomas decided to go see the show. As he entered the circus tent, he was greeted by the sight of acrobats soaring through the air, clowns making the audience laugh, and exotic animals performing tricks. Thomas was thoroughly entertained, but something didn't sit right with him. During the intermission, Thomas noticed a small, shabby tent at the back of the circus. Curious, he made his way over and peeked inside. There, he saw a sad-looking elephant chained to a post, its eyes full of sorrow. Thomas's heart ached for the poor creature. He approached the circus master and asked why the elephant was kept in such a pitiful state. The circus master shrugged and said, "It's just an animal. It doesn't feel the same way we do. Thomas couldn't believe what he was hearing. Without thinking, Thomas bought the elephant from the circus master, using every penny he had. He didn't know what he would do with the elephant, but he knew he couldn't leave it there. The next day, Thomas led the elephant to a nearby sanctuary where it could live freely with other animals. The sanctuary's caretaker thanked Thomas for his kindness, and the elephant seemed to sense that it was finally safe. As Thomas walked away from the sanctuary, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He had given up all his savings, but he knew it was worth it. Word of Thomas's deeds spread quickly, and the townspeople were amazed by his generosity. Some thought he was foolish for spending all his money on an animal, while others admired his selflessness. A few months later, Thomas received a letter from a distant relative who had passed away, leaving him a small inheritance. It wasn't much, but it was enough to get by. Thomas was grateful for the unexpected gift, but he continued to live simply, just as he always had. He spent his days helping his neighbors and teaching children about the importance of honesty.